Greetings, African family. This is Brother Dulani, and I come to you once again on this journey to bring more clarity to the African family and to discuss the issues facing the African family. My people, I would like to greet you in the honorable spirit of our great and mighty African ancestors, and invite you to like and share this broadcast and to subscribe to this channel. As you know, I'm just starting out. This is my second video on in the launching of this channel. The actual channel itself has been, I've had it for a long time, many years, but not active. I never took it serious. I never engaged with it in this manner until now. And so this is my second video coming forward with some content that I'm very serious about. So yes, thank you very much for joining me and for listening to me. I think we should start with the basic. As an African family, I think we should discuss the issue of identity. I think the issue of identity is very significant and very important. And I think it has caused a lot of contention, a lot of misunderstanding, and in many cases conflicts amongst our people. Excuse me. And I think that we need to come to terms with who we are as a people. And as you know, in this world today, African people, black people, having a cultural or identity crisis at this moment, where many of our people are not comfortable with who they are. They're not comfortable with being an African. They're not comfortable just accepting their blackness and their African heritage and their history. They want to pretend, and they want to be everything else except being an African. And I would like to just bring forward the idea that we are African people. I think our blood, our DNA carries the marker of our ancestry that we can actually use as a yardstick to determine, in terms of biologically who we are connected to and where we have been as a people. And I think being that Africa was invaded, African people was stolen, kidnapped, and shipped across the world and enslaved in many parts of the world. We have been scattered. And because of this scattering, we have been through a lot of turbulence along the way. And we have had a traumatic experience, traumatic impact on our culture, on our identity. And, it has caused a lot of psychological issues for us. And it is very important that we just come to terms with that. And that a lot of the issues, a lot of the behavior, and a lot of the mental, the psychosis that we see amongst our people today is linked to what happened to us, to the impact that our enslavement has had on our culture. Now, I was born in Jamaica, and Jamaica is in what you'd call geographically on the map Central America, but it's also in a place called the Caribbean and a place also called the West Indies. Now, here we are. Let's come to terms with a lot of things. A lot of these locations and a lot of these geographical places were named by people. They were named primarily by Europeans. And the European would take a name and they would name the place, like for instance, Caribbean. They would name the place off of the Carib. And they say the Caribs and the word Carib come from the word cannibal. So it's the place of the cannibals. So now here we are in the identity phrase, calling ourselves, oh, I'm a Caribbean, identifying ourselves as Carib. When, in fact, we are African people. And if you check our DNA, the African that exists right now in the so-called Caribbean would be considered to be, what, 70 to 80% African by DNA, and 20 to 30% European, and maybe 1 to 2% native, if you find that. So primarily, and then you may get a 0.5% that's Asiatic, would be mixed in our DNA mix, if it was to do a DNA survey. But certainly, we have been defined as Caribbean people. That's not acceptable. Now, let's go to another one, West Indian. Now, we are not in the west of India. We are not in India. The people in the Caribbean, so-called Caribbean, are not Indian. A European made an error, made a mistake, thought he was in India, and named the people they're Indian. Now, are we going to maintain that error and identify ourselves as West Indian? Or are we going to be honest with ourselves? Are we going to be honest with ourselves and say, we cannot be, as African, living the falsehood of Europeans? We cannot do that. That's not acceptable. We can't be teaching our children these things, that we are West Indies, or we are West Indian. We're not. So we have to come to terms with those things. We got to get those things out of our school system and out of our system. We have a university in the Caribbean named the University of the West Indies. I mean, the University of the West Indies is supposed to be the bastion of knowledge for the Africans in that region, in that geographical location that they now call the Caribbean or the West Indies. Or you can call it Central America, all that area there, because we're talking about continental waters. You're talking about, you got North America, you got Central America, and you got South America. The Caribbean would be in the geographically located in the Central America body of water. You know what I'm saying? And even that, the whole naming of places, we have to check those things and be careful how we identify ourselves with these names that these people came up with, and even in error. And we continue these errors, and we continue to teach ourselves and teach our children these things. And it has led to a lot of misunderstanding. Now, one of the most essential things, let me say this, before I depart from that subject of West Indies or Caribbean. If it was up to me, that region would be named Far West Africa. That's what I would name the Caribbean. Yeah, that's what I would name it. Or the so-called Caribbean, the so-called West Indies. Name it Far West Africa. Why not? But anyway, so when we look at that, in terms of identity, we all got a uniqueness about ourselves. Jamaicans, Trinidadians, Barbadians, and so forth. We all have a uniqueness, and we embrace our uniqueness, and we embrace our differences, our nuances that we have developed over the years. But essentially, we are all Africans. That's been scattered all over those islands, and in North America, in Central America, and South America. We are African people, and we can determine that by blood and by DNA, but also by the remnants of the culture. And now we have amongst us now some of our own people who are now ashamed of being African, ashamed of being who they are. Now they want to pretend to be other people that they're not. First, you got those who claim that they are Hebrew Israelite. They claim that they are descendants from fictional characters in the Bible. They claim that they are descendants from people like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These people whose existence are questionable. No evidence, no archaeological evidence, and they're not Africans. These are people from outside of Africa. That means that our ancestors who have been in Africa for hundreds of thousands of years didn't come out of Africa. We came from somewhere else and went into Africa. And that goes against everything scientifically about our history of mankind. That we know that Africa is the mother continent. That is a scientific fact. But because of Bible, because of doctrine, because of religious doctrine, we are now being taught to believe that we are descendants, or we are Hebrew Israelite descended from some would call eponymous ancestors, such as Isaac and Jacob and Moses and all those great characters in the Bible. And that's very problematic. Because if that is the case, then what about the Zulus? What about the Ashanti? What about the Twa? What about the Maasai? Where did we descend from? And then, you go all over West Africa where we are directly lineaged from. We've been in there for tens of thousands of years in West Africa. Way before the invention of a Hebrew Israelite. Way before the invention of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But these people, they fail to see that. They think that somehow, this understanding of Abraham have always been there. And it is an actual fact. When we know that these things are late stories. These are stories that came about with the spreading of the Bible. And the Bible was spread primarily in the modern time through the same enslavement ship that was spreading goods around the world at the time. The cargoes, our ancestors were shipped on the same ships that were shipping the Bible around the world. And that's how we picked up on those stories. Prior to that, in West Africa, in Central Africa, in Southern Africa, we were not talking like that. That was taught to us by these people that was enslaving us. That's how we got a hold of this doctrine and started describing ourselves as Hebrew Israelites and people of the Bible. They're not us. There is no book of the Ashanti. There is no book of the Zulu. There's no book of the Fulani. There's none. There's no book of the Maasai. Where's the great prophet of West Africa? Because they didn't consider us. Those people wrote the book, they didn't even know we existed. And that's the reality of it. But now we're claiming to be those people. It is a sad reality, but that is it. So that's one set of people amongst our people. And that has had a major effect on our people. Because Christianity is a dominant religion amongst our people. And it has infected Rastafari and other movement, even the Islamic movement, all been infected by this idea that we are some other people than who we are. We're African people from West, Central, and Southern Africa. And we need to come to terms with that. Then you got another one now. There's a few more sets. And there's another set that call themselves Moors. So they're descendants of the Moor, that black people in the West are all descendants from this great Moroccan Empire. And that is in itself a big a mess as well. That in itself is a big mess that, history does not bore that out. There were many Africans who were a part of the Moorish Empire and the Moorish conquest of Spain, but we are not descendants of those people. And it is not as fantastic as they want us to believe. So we're African people. The same Moors came to Africa as well and helped to destroy many of our African civilization. Check John Henry Clark for that information on the source on that. But anyway, there's another set now that has they have emerged recently in the discourse on our identity. And they call themselves the Indians, the natives, the indigenous, the Aboriginals. These are African people who claim that they came out the soil of America. They say their grandmother told them that they're Indians. that they are Choctaw, they are Cherokees, they are this, they are that. And guess what? When you check them and ask them, can we do a DNA test to verify, are you these people? They are opposed to DNA. They do not want to acknowledge the African in them. They would do anything to avoid the African in their blood and claim to be other people. They claim the history of the native people in America. They claim to be the Aztecs and the Mayans, and they claim all these things. They tell about the Great Pyramids, and they talk about it ever as if it was them. They sound like culture vultures. Some people call them pretendians. They're pretending to be Indians. Now they're talking about feather up. It's a joke. It's a joke, African people. It's an embarrassment. No scholarship in the world embrace and endorse that. And it's something we should get far away from as possible. Get our children away from that madness. It's an embarrassment. The most you're going to find in African people is between 1 and 3%. If you got 5% native in you, you got a lot. And that's the reality of it. And the fact of the matter is that all of those people, humanity began in Africa. And Africa migrated around the world and populated everywhere in the world. But this migration into the Americas by the native people took place over, approximately about 20,000 years ago, 15 to 20,000 years ago. That's when it happened. You know what I mean? Prior to that, the Americas was uninhabited. Nobody, no life form, no human life form was in those areas. And you hear them talk now, so they came out the soil, like the trees grew out the soil, and that's how they came about. I mean, it's weird. Only because they don't want to acknowledge being African. And it's a psychosis that's born out of our enslavement. It's a form of self-hate, self-rejection, and a self-denial. And that is the reason why I think we should start this series of discussion around the idea of identity. Because we got to get that right. We're African people and we're scattered all over. We're scattered all over North America, Central America, South America, in the so-called Caribbean, and also in Europe. And wherever we are, we have the same challenges. Dealing with white supremacy, dealing with capitalism, dealing with domination. We've been stripped of who we are, and for the great part. We've been stripped of our knowledge ourselves, and many of us have become ashamed of who we are. But we are reclaiming that knowledge. We have our great scholars who are now piecing back together our history. And we have a vibrant culture. Wherever we are the culture makers. You know what I'm saying? Because I think we have to now discuss and analyze who we are to each other. Because that's different from who we are to the governance structure, to those who govern the world that we live in. Who we are to them is different from who we are to each other. And we cannot allow other people to dictate who we're going to be to each other. And I think we have to embrace each other. We have to embrace our roots, our ancestry. Our African ancestors have to be the forefront of our philosophical and political outlook on life. Because once we get the foundation right, we can build. We shouldn't have no problem with our brothers and sisters in North America. We should have no problem or issues with our brothers in Europe, in Britain, in France, and our brothers in Colombia, in Brazil, and our brothers in Guyana, in Barbados, in Trinidad. We should see ourselves as African people that are fighting for betterment, to become great again. And that's the key. We work together. We love each other. We don't need to pretend to be nobody else. We just have to be ourselves, accept who we are. And that's why I come to you and I try to I hope I can bring this discussion, and hopefully one day, I mean, as this program grows, this platform, I grow on this platform, we can open up the line and we can have a dialogue, and we can discuss some of these issues. But I just want to start off with this particular broadcast, this particular program or show, because I'm new to this language of these kind of podcasts, is how this one is surrounding identity, exploring identity. And there's many layers, because we can also deal with culture. Maybe we can deal with culture on our next broadcast. So I'm going to end it on this for now. And thank you for listening to me. And do like and share this program, and do subscribe so it can grow, and it will give me the opportunity to provide you with more content and share my clear thinking. And this is the name of this podcast. It's called Clear Thinking with Brother Dulani. And thank you very much. And I said until next time, I say farewell for now, in the honorable spirit of our great and mighty African ancestors. This has been Brother Dulani. This has been Clear Thinking with Brother Dulani. Hotep.